Well, hello there and welcome to February, where we'll have a look at things going on in the sky. Now then, starting off with the usual customary look at the sun here, and the sun really is livening up as solar cycle 25 gathers pace. We have two very interesting sunspot groups here, 2940 and 2941 in the sun's northern hemisphere, and this large spot 2939 in the sun's southern hemisphere. So both very active areas. And we're hoping for a little bit of CME action. In fact, there's one coming towards us right at the moment, as I do this on the 8th of February, that should be here in a couple of days' time, probably the 10th or so. And we'll see if that gives us any geomagnetic storm activity. Just looking at the stats, it's already the 8th of February, and there have been no spotless days yet in 2022. So that's 0% as opposed to a total of 18% over 2021. That takes us back to where we were sort of in 2012, 2013, which was actually brings us a bit ahead of where we really ought to be, bearing in mind this is an 11-year cycle. But certainly cycle 25 living up to expectations. Here's the predictions. This was the original NASA NOAA prediction. The blue line, which surmised that cycle 25 would be very similar to cycle 24 and somewhat less than 23, 22 and 21 before it. However, other studies, this one by McIntosh et al. Of 2020, is sort of saying, well, this could be a biggie. This could be a lot bigger than cycle 24 and certainly up there with 23 and maybe even 22 and 21. So we wait and see. By the way, the green line here is the mean of all cycles since 1755, as much as records support that. So that's where we are. Now, there has been a lot of auroral activity in the early part of this year. And this wonderful shot taken by my friend Alastair Hamill, from Slemish. This is it's actually an extinct volcano called Slemish in County Antrim, and he caught some beautiful rays on this across. I think that would be the Friday night of the 4th or something of that sort of 4th or 5th of February. So looking really very good for things get a bit better as we come up towards the towards the equinox, actually, because equinoxes do tend to be better at collecting the solar rays and feeding them down into the upper atmosphere to produce the northern lights. Planets. Now, we looked at planets a lot last month because the planets were much better last month. Jupiter is getting. We're losing Jupiter to the sunset now. You can see it lasting in the evening. By the end of February, you won't be able to see Jupiter. It'll be more or less behind the sun, and that's where Saturn is now. So Saturn, I'm afraid, is not visible this month. It will reappear in the mornings as we go into March. Mars has already made that trip behind the sun and is visible in the southeast before sunrise in the morning, and likewise Venus is now visible in the morning too. Mercury will get a little go as a morning star through the first couple of weeks of February, and then will disappear again behind the sun and reappear, I think, sometime in April. Uranus and Neptune are still well visible in the evening. You will need optical aids to see them. Some say you can see magnitude 5.8 Uranus. Without optical aids. I never have, to be honest, but it's in Aries, not in a fairly dark part of the sky, not far from Hamal and Sheraton, the two main stars of Aries. Likewise, Neptune you will see through a telescope or binoculars, but not naked eye, because it's magnitude 7.8. That's really, nobody's got eyesight that good, I'm afraid. But below the head of Pisces, actually in the constellation just of Aquarius. And you'll need a star chart like Stellarium or something to find Uranus and Neptune there, but they are both visible in a telescope or binoculars. Now then, the names we sort of give to constellations, asterisms, are not constant. They change with time. And this is something that I'd never heard of when I was learning all this stuff as a kid, because it didn't exist. It's a very recent way of describing a pattern of stars in the sky, an asterism if you like. And this one is the Winter Hexagon. Now, the Winter Hexagon, very well observed this time of year. Let's start with Rigel here at the bottom corner of Orion the Hunter. There's Orion, there's Betelgeuse, there's the belt of Orion, and a bright star, bright blue star at the bottom corner there, Rigel, which literally means foot, actually, in Arabic, and it's the hunter's foot, Rigel. Then draw a line across to Sirius, brightest star in the sky, Alpha Canis Majoris. Then up to Procyon, Alpha Canis Minoris. Then Castor and Pollux, the two twins of Gemini here, and let's go to Castor there, and across to Capella in Auriga, and down to Aldebaran, the Eye of the Bull, and back down to Rigel. That's the Winter Hexagon. 6 sides, and that's a good way of describing it. However, our American cousins, they have seen this just slightly differently. Same idea, just a slightly different arrangement of things, and this is Big G, and you get the general idea here. This time we're starting at Betelgeuse, then coming down to Rigel, then same route, Sirius, Procyon, Castor and Pollux, Capella, and down to Aldebaran. That's Big G. Same thing. What we're going to do, it's a very rich area of the sky, so let's have a closer look at a lot of the deep sky objects within the Winter Hexagon, or Big G. Okay, so here we are looking at the Big G area of the sky, and I've picked a time on the 20th of February, 8 o'clock in the evening. It's a good convenient time to look at it. It's on perfect display directly south, and I've chosen the date just so that the moon is out of the way so we can see the dark sky objects nicely. So let's just have a look at the general stars we have here. We have the Orion with Betelgeuse and Rigel at the two corners. They're of almost equal brightness now, and a couple of years ago you would definitely not have said that. Betelgeuse did go through a period of going faint, but it seems to have recovered pretty much fully now. The three star belt of Orion points upwards that way towards Aldebaran and downwards that way towards Sirius, brightest star in the sky. Then if you follow a line up from Rigel through Betelgeuse, you come to the two twins of Gemini, Castor and Pollux there. And if you go straight up from Orion, you come to Capella. Capella is actually close enough to the pole that for us, certainly at our latitude in Ireland, it is a circumpolar star. That is to say, you can always see it any time of the year, whereas most of the rest of this sort of is only visible in the winter months. Although actually, if you get up early in the morning, you can see Orion at the end of August, and late in the evening, or before, just after sunset, through till May. But then you don't see it at all for the summer. So let's have a look at a few things a bit closer up. Sirius, brightest star in the sky. A couple of things about Sirius we need to be aware of. One, it's bright because it's close. Here we go. There's some details there. Magnitude minus 1.45, which is pretty bright, and its distance not very far away, 8.6 light years. So we'll zoom in on Sirius, looking incredibly bright there. I don't think Stellarium's even going to show me the pup. It does not. No, it does not. So Sirius has a white dwarf companion. Slightly controversial in that it's reckoned that some of the ancients knew about it long before science discovered it, but it's reckoned to date from 1861, its first discovery. It is of the 9th magnitude. It's just the fact that it's so close to Sirius means it's very, very difficult to spot. Actually, now is not a bad time because it has an elliptical orbit around Sirius, and actually the distance of Sirius B from Sirius at the moment is pretty much as good as it gets. So if you point a telescope at Sirius, something fairly big, if you have a sort of 8 or 10 inch Newtonian, you should be able to catch a glimpse of the pup, Sirius B. Okay, now we'll go down a bit from Sirius. There's a nice little open cluster in Canis Major called Messier 41. Here it is. A nice open cluster. Looks nice even in a small telescope. And it even shows up nicely on a photographic image. While we're just in this neck of the woods, one thing I will mention, if you were not very much further south, actually, about another 20 degrees further south, and you followed a line down from Sirius southwards down here, you could see the second brightest star in the sky, Canopus. And I have actually seen it myself from Florida and Gran Canaria, both, and that's what you see there. So let's go and have a look at some other objects. Now then, if we go into Orion, apart from the belt, the 3 stars of Orion's belt here, is Orion's sword. And if we zoom in on that, this is the large area here is Messier 42, the Great Orion Nebula, and then this little one here, Messier 43. And above that we can also see NGC 99, which is the Running Man Nebula, which is the shadow here of the man running. And then we go up towards Alnitak, the bottom of the 3 stars here, and we can see the Flame Nebula, which looks quite dramatic, but also below that there's a region of hydrogen alpha emissions, and if we go close to that, there is the Horsehead Nebula, being a dark area against that hydrogen alpha area there. Okay, another one to look at in that neck of the woods. Let's go out here. This is there we are, we've got two elements. This is the Rosette Nebula. That's the hydrogen alpha bit, the red area there. You need a sort of a red sensitive camera hooked up to a fair-sized telescope to get a decent picture of that. The easy bit to see actually is the star cluster at the centre of it, just there. So that's the Rosette. And that sort of theme happens quite a lot, actually. If you look up here, for example, there's another case of a star cluster with hydrogen alpha around it. This one is the Christmas Tree Nebula. I think you can sort of see where they're coming from there. And there are others. So looking at Gemini again, we'll zoom in closer here, and several clusters here. There's a whole group of open clusters. This one here, Messier 35, is a nice open cluster. You can get that in a scope. It's actually visible to the naked eye, just about, magnitude 5.1. It has a nice NGC next to it as well, 2158, another open star cluster. That's a couple of magnitudes less brilliant, but if you can see one, you can generally see the other in a scope. Both looking quite impressive, and there's a whole string of those actually. If we move up into Auriga, we come up from M35 to M37. Is here. That's Messier 37. Nice open cluster again, just about naked eye visible, 5.6, and then we go a little bit further up. Messier 36. There's that one there that's also called the Pinwheel Cluster. I don't often hear it called that, but that's what it is. And further up, the Starfish Cluster, Messier 38. There's that whole group of those there in Auriga. Now then, if we zoom out of this, and we'll come back to Taurus. Let's have a look at Taurus. Now we have Aldebaran, the Eye of the Bull, here in Taurus. And a number of stars around it that's called the Hyades cluster. So we're looking at that there. This is the Hyades cluster here. And what we have to realise is that Aldebaran is not actually one of the Hyades. Aldebaran is much closer than all of them. These are about 400 light years away. Aldebaran here is much closer than that. So it's about 60 something light years away, I think. But we look more closely here at the general structure of Taurus. We have the horns of the bull here. We have 2 horns. One goes to the star Elnath, which is quite bright and easily visible, Beta Tauri. And there's this star here, Tingwan Zeta Tauri here. Let's go have a look at Zeta Tauri. It's not a terribly interesting star in itself, but if we zoom in to Zeta Tauri, I find that just next to it here is the Crab Nebula. And this is fantastic. It's Messier number 1, and it's only 11th magnitude, but you see it through a telescope. It's really quite spectacular. Photographs show it off to best effect, but that is a supernova remnant of the supernova that the Chinese witnessed in the year 1054. where a star blew itself to pieces quite spectacularly. And in 1968 it was discovered that there's actually a pulsar at the heart of the Crab Nebula. So that's what was the leftover of that star explosion. Okay, so that's Messier 1. Now everyone knows the Seven Sisters. M45, just on the opposite side of Taurus here. And Seven Sisters is a good approximation. I only ever see 6. Look through a telescope and you can see that there's actually at least a couple of hundred going on there, but there are 7 bright ones. Some people can see 10 or 12 if they've got good eyesight. The Japanese call this Subaru, and if you are fortunate enough to own a Subaru car and you look on the front of it, you'll see 6 stars. So I deduced that Mr. Subaru had not terribly good eyesight like me, because he could only see 6 as well. So that's the sisters. Okay, so that's a quick whiz round some of the highlights of the Big G area of the sky. There's plenty more to see there, but it's well worth a look, and February, March is the best time of the year to see it, so enjoy that. Okay, that's all I have for you this month, so stay safe, keep looking up, and thanks for watching.